Hello guys, welcome back to the Logical Coders. Today we will learn about the Kotlin break statement. Okay, so there comes many scenario in which we want to terminate the loop immediately. In that case, we use break statement. And it is similar to how break statement works in Java. Also, it is almost used with if-else condition. So the Kotlin break terminates the nearest enclosing loop. So let's see the syntax for break statement in Kotlin. While here we are going to define the condition for the loop. And you can write code here, and then you want to check the condition, and this is the condition to break. Now if this condition evaluates to true, only then you will come inside this block, and you can do any kind of code here and then simply print break. Now what this break does here, suppose if this condition comes out to be true, you will simply come inside this while block, and then you are going to check the condition for if, and if it evaluates to true, then you will come inside this if block and then simply execute the code, and then your break statement will execute. The moment your break statement will execute, you will come out of the nearest loop, which is the while loop in our case here. So it will simply come out of the while loop and will simply execute your code here outside the while loop. Let's see one more example with for loop. Now here we are going to iterate through iterator in for loop, as we have done with the help of ranges and strings. So now you come inside this loop and you can run your code here, and again we are going to check the condition to break. If this condition evaluates to true, only then you will allow to come inside this if block and execute the code, and then execute your break statement. And the moment this break statement will execute, you will come out of the nearest loop, which is for in this case. So you will simply come out of the for loop and your code outside the for loop will execute. Now let's do some examples to make things more clear. Let's say for I in 0 double dot operator 6. I'm going to use the range iterator here. Then simply I want to print this is the break statement println in Kotlin. Now you want to check the condition for if. So the condition is if I is equal to 5, then simply break it, else print the value of I here. Okay, so let's execute it. Okay, so we got the output here. As you can see here, this is printing the value from 0 till 4. So what is happening here, this range will give you number from 0 to 6. So the first number here is I is equal to 0 for the first loop, and now it comes inside this block. So the first statement of this is the break statement, so it will execute. The second is in Kotlin, and the third it will going to check the condition for if. So if I is equal to 5, it will come inside the if block and simply break it. So in our case the value is I is equal to 0, so it evaluates to false, and it will not come inside this if block. So the break statement won't execute, and it will simply come to this print statement here and will going to print I, and here the value of I is 0, so it will going to print the value of I, which is 0 in this case. In the second loop it will going to fetch the value 1 and simply going to print this statement, and then this, and now comes to the if condition and check the condition. If I is equal to 5, only then it will going to execute this break statement. But here the value of I is 1, so it evaluates to false. It will not going to come inside this if block and will going to simply print the value of I, which is 1, and it goes on until the value of I will become 5, and it will going to check the condition here again. So if I is equal to 5, it will come inside the if block and will execute this break statement and will terminate your for loop, which is the nearest loop. So it will going to execute any code outside of the for loop. This is what we have got here. The moment I becomes equal to 5, it simply break the nearest loop and will come out of the loop. Okay, so let's get rid of this and move to our next example. So here we have where I is equal to, let's say 20, and then I'm going to implement a do while loop here. So do if I is equal to 25, and if this condition evaluates to true, only then I come inside this if block, and it will implement the value of I by 1 and will going to simply break the loop. But if it evaluates to false, then I simply want to print the value of I here and want to increment it by 1, and then I want to check the condition of while. If I is less than or equal to 30, then the control goes to do once again. So let's execute it. Okay, so here we got the output and it prints the value from 20 to 24. So let's see what happens here. So the first time the value of I is equal to 20 here, so it evaluates to false and it will not come inside this if block, and we're going to simply print the value of I, which is 20, and will increment it by 1, so it will become 21. And now it will come out of this and check the condition for while, and here the value of I is 21, so it will going to check if 21 is less than or equal to 30, and yes, it is less than 30, so it evaluates to true and your control goes to do block once again, and this will going on until the value of I will become 25. The moment the I will become 25 and it evaluates to true, then it will come inside this if block and then simply going to increment the value of I by 1 and will become 26, but then break statement will execute and it will simply break the nearest loop. So the control comes here. So whatever the code you will write here, it will execute. Okay, so now remove all of this stuff. Now we have something called labeled break in Kotlin. Kotlin labeled break is used to terminate the desired loop or a specific loop. Kotlin label starts with an identifier which is followed by @ symbol. So let's dive into this a little deeper to understand this. First you want to give it a name, and you can give any name, let's say first loop in our case, and followed by @ symbol. Now simply write for I in 1 _ operator 5, and I'm going to specify inner loop here, second loop followed by @ symbol for I in 1 _ operator 3, and print I is equal to $symbol I and j equal to $symbol the value of j. Oh sorry, let me just make this to j. And now I want to check the condition. If I is equal to 2, then come inside the if block and simply break it. But I want to break the second loop here. Okay, so let's understand this. The very first time the value of I here is 1. So I is equal to 1 in this case, and when it goes to the inner loop, the I is still 1 and the value of j is 1 as well. And now this will going to print the value of I and j here, so it will going to print I is equal to 1 and j is equal to 1. And now it comes to if and check the condition. If I is equal to 2, only then come inside the if block and break the specific loop, which is second loop in our case. But I is equal to 1 here, so it evaluates to false and will not come inside the if block, and again goes to inner for loop. So the value of I is still remains same, which is 1, and for j it will become 2, so it will going to print this 2, and again it evaluates to false and will again going to the inner for loop. So the value of I is 1 and it will become 3, and it will going to print this 3. After 3 we are done with the range, so it will going to our first loop, which is 4, and it will fetch the value of 2. Now this will become 2 and it will going to fetch the value of 1 and will print 2 and 2. Sorry, 1. J is 1. The inner loop is execute for the first time for I is equal to 2. So now it will come to the if condition, and now I is equal to 2. So it will going inside the if block and break the second loop. So it will simply going to break the second loop, and the control goes to the first loop once again, and I will become 3 and it will goes on. So let's execute it, and here we got the output. As you can see, the moment I will become is equal to 2, it will break the loop, and the control will go back to the first loop once again and will print 3, and it goes on. So this is it for the video. I hope you find it easy. Thank you for watching.